Welcome to Teraflora Studio, where the quiet beauty of imagination takes root, and where forgotten objects bloom into something extraordinary. In this gentle corner of the internet, we invite you to slow down, to breathe deeper, to find calm inspiration among moss, wood, sunlight, and time. Today, you'll be guided through a collection of whimsical garden ideas, enchanting DIY inspirations made from simple things and from soulful moments. Each piece, each whisper of design is more than just a project. It's a pause, a practice of turning clutter into quiet charm. You don't need special tools. You don't need expert hands. Just a little time, a touch of wonder, and maybe a corner of your garden or your heart that longs to feel alive again. Here at Teraflora Studio, we believe that creativity belongs to everyone. That magic can bloom from recycled bits, from broken pots and dusty drawers, from plastic bottles, teacups, and wooden spoons. If the space feels like something you'd like to return to, if it brings you a sense of ease, inspiration, or quiet joy, then we kindly invite you to subscribe to Teraflora Studio. Let our future stories find their way to you, softly, regularly, and always crafted with heart. Now, let's begin. The garden awaits. The beauty of fairy gardening is its defiance of convention. Its joy in the odd, the forgotten, the whimsical. And what better way to embrace that spirit than by planting life where it wasn't meant to bloom? A scuffed leather boot, a forgotten drawer, a time-worn suitcase. Once dismissed, now enchanted. Take a quiet afternoon and look around. That single boot with a worn sole, it holds stories. With a handful of soil, some creeping moss, and a sprinkle of creativity, it can become a home for your tiniest dreams. Tuck in a succulent, wedge in a stone seat, let a mushroom figurine peek out from the rim. Suddenly, what once walked miles now rests as a garden for daydreams. Old drawers are another charming vessel. Their natural divisions become perfect zones. A fairy's kitchen in one corner, a tea garden in another. Use bark to build small fences. Paint polished pebbles into colorful stepping stones. And don't be afraid to let some soil spill over the edge. Nature's imperfection is part of the magic. And the vintage suitcase, perhaps it once carried a family's hopes. Now it carries time and Irish moss, tiny ladders leading nowhere, and paper butterflies stitched to twigs. Let the lid lean back, framing your scene like a theater. Hang paper lanterns from the handle. Add a fairy door inside, suggesting life within, though never seen. These vessels aren't just quirky, they're soulful. They invite passers-by to pause. Children crouch to peek inside. Friends smile and ask, "Where did you find this idea?" And you'll answer with a knowing grin. It was just there, waiting to be imagined. The key lies in simple preparation. Make sure your vessel has drainage, a few holes at the bottom or a gravel base. Use potting soil mixed with sand for better airflow. Choose resilient, low-maintenance plants like baby's tears, sedum, or thyme. Refresh the scene with each season. Snow-dusted pine cones in winter, sunflower fairies in summer. With time, these quirky vessel gardens soften into their surroundings. Rain dampens them, sun dries them, yet they remain quiet, gentle spectacles of repurposed charm. Because magic doesn't always need a perfect pot. Sometimes, it's best when it blooms from what was once forgotten. There's something tenderly magical about light, especially when it glows from within an old lantern. It flickers like a whisper, telling stories that only the garden hears. And when you fill that lantern with life, tiny plants, twigs, moss, and charm. It becomes more than decor. It becomes a world. Start with any lantern, wide glass panes, or even slatted metal that lets light peek through. Perhaps it's one you've stored away, or one found at a thrift store with a hint of rust that only adds to its history. Carefully remove the top or one side for easier planting. Begin with a bed of pebbles for drainage, a layer of soil, and gently nestle in a tiny succulent or thyme sprig. Then comes the magic. A soft LED tea light or solar fairy light coiled inside brings your miniature world to life. As dusk falls, the garden glows, not just visually, but emotionally. It's the warmth of a fireplace in miniature form. Create a path from tiny white stones. Add a wooden bench carved from bark. Maybe a ceramic toadstool, or a fairy door pressed against the inner glass wall. Each object tells a tale, invites the viewer to lean closer. These glowing lantern worlds are perfect for balconies, patios, and shaded corners that need a touch of soul. Hang them from shepherd's hooks or tree branches. Let them line your garden path like tiny lighthouses guiding woodland spirits home. What makes lantern planters truly special is their layered experience. In the daylight, they are intricate miniature gardens. At night, they transform into glowing beacons of wonder. And the best part? They require very little upkeep. Drought-tolerant plants and protected placement inside glass keep the mini ecosystem happy. Rotate themes with the seasons. In spring, add miniature eggs and pastel petals. In autumn, tuck in cinnamon sticks and mini pumpkins. In winter, sprinkle a dusting of faux snow, letting the light shimmer like frost. A lantern doesn't just carry light, it cradles possibility. It says, pause, look closer. There's something quietly beautiful here. And in a world that rushes too fast, that kind of gentle invitation is a gift for you and for anyone who passes by. Some gardens whisper stories, others sing in chapters. But a garden divided into fairy zones? That's a whole book waiting to be read. One pebble path, one mossy corner at a time. Creating a fairy village is not about filling space. It's about carving out purpose. Each miniature zone tells a different tale, a new emotion. Perhaps it begins with a forest glade where tiny wooden stumps serve as seats and dried leaves curl into fairy tents. This is the quiet retreat, where fairies rest and dream. Just beyond that, a cobbled plaza made of smooth stones hosts a market scene. You can almost imagine the chatter. Fairies bartering over glitter-dusted berries, or sipping nectar under a parasol made of dried petals. Add a painted button as a table, acorn caps as bowls, and moss as rugs rolled out for display. Across a small gravel path lies a sleepy riverside, a stream carved from blue glass stones, lined with driftwood benches. Here, the breeze feels softer, the light more golden. A solar lantern, nestled behind a twig arch, waits to glow as dusk descends. Dividing your garden into zones brings rhythm and narrative. Use bark chips or pebbles as gentle borders. Let elevation shifts add mystery. A hill for the Fairy Queen's Tower, a lower grove for night gatherings. Place plants mindfully. Trailing sedum for winding vines, Irish moss for fairy lawns, thyme as wild shrubbery. This approach also invites collaboration. Children can adopt zones, crafting scenes and adjusting details as seasons change. Friends can leave tiny gifts behind. A pebble heart, a clay fruit basket. The village grows not just in form, but in spirit. Maintenance is a joy. Each area becomes its own little world. Easy to update without disturbing the others. Add new accessories as you find them. A bent spoon becomes a seesaw, a seashell a fairy bathtub. Let your creativity stretch wide, then tuck itself neatly into one tiny district. Over time, your garden becomes not just a scene, but a living map of wonder. One that can be walked through with eyes and traveled with the heart. A miniature kingdom that grows with you. Every garden holds secrets, but some invite you to find them. Hidden among ivy and roots, nestled in bark or brick, lie the tiniest of doors. Barely taller than your thumb, they wait in silence, weathered by rain and warmed by sunlight. They don't open, not physically, but they lead somewhere still, somewhere imagined. Crafting a secret fairy path is not about decoration. It's about suggestion. It hints at stories rather than telling them outright. A winding trail of painted stones or natural pebbles leads nowhere in particular, yet your eye follows. At the end, a miniature door. Perhaps it's made from driftwood, perhaps a broken ceramic shard with hinges drawn in ink. Either way, it pulls you in. You can tuck these portals at the base of a tree, along your garden wall, or even in a large flower pot. Let ivy partially cover them. Scatter dried leaves nearby, as if something recently passed through. Use twigs to build an arch above the door, or hang a bell no larger than a thimble. What's beautiful about fairy trails is their gentle mystery. Unlike full fairy villages, these are quieter installations. They don't demand attention. They reward observation. Children stumble upon them with wide eyes. Adults pause, smile, and remember. The path itself becomes part of the illusion. Use smooth stones, bark chips, or old broken tiles to create a trail. Paint subtle symbols or patterns on each. Add a sign or two. To the hollow, or beware, pixie crossing. Let moss grow in between. Let rain wash some of the paint away. The more aged it looks, the more believable it becomes. These secret paths are perfect for narrow side gardens, shaded corners, or tucked beneath taller plants. They require almost no upkeep, but offer endless charm. Update with seasons, a snow-dusted pebble for winter, or a dried berry wreath on the door for autumn. And while fairies may not be seen, their presence will be felt. In the hush of a breeze, the rustle of leaves, or the feeling that you've just missed something small and wonderful. A fairy portal doesn't open into the garden. It opens the garden into imagination. There's a special kind of joy that blooms not from buying new things, but from breathing new life into the forgotten. A chipped teacup, once hidden in the back of a cupboard, now spills over with moss and miniature time. A spoon, tarnished with time, becomes a fairy signpost. Bottle caps, corks, twigs, and broken bits all whisper, "I can be something magical." This is the soul of upcycled fairy gardening. Start by gathering what you already have. Wander through your kitchen, your garage, your junk drawer. That old jam jar can be a glowing fairy tower, a drawer knob, a garden gate. Even cracked pottery finds purpose as walls, fountains, or whimsical shelters. Nothing is wasted, everything is transformed. Thrift shops and dollar stores are treasure troves. Pick up old figurines and repaint them. Look for candle holders, salt shakers, or small glass containers. With a bit of imagination, they become fairy homes, bird baths, or enchanted wells. Then, it's time to create. Paint pebbles to look like toadstools. Use popsicle sticks for fences or tiny footbridges. Wrap wire and beads into sparkling fairy chandeliers. Recycle mesh fruit bags into hammocks or hanging vines. Let each object tell a story. Upcycled gardens are not only beautiful, they're deeply personal. Each piece carries memory. A spoon from childhood, a teacup from a relative, a tile from a remodel. Your garden becomes a patchwork of life, stitched together with soil and sunlight. And the cost? Nearly nothing. This is DIY at its finest. Eco-friendly, soul-filled, and bursting with charm. It teaches patience, observation, and joy in the humble. It encourages others to look twice at what they might have thrown away. Even more, it's healing. Working with your hands, crafting something small and precious from discarded things. It slows time. It softens the noise of the world. It brings you back to center. So next time you toss something aside, ask yourself, could this become part of a fairy tale? Because sometimes the magic is already there. It just needs your hands to awaken it. In the world of fairy gardens, scale is a sacred rule, and nature, when chosen gently, honors it beautifully. The plants you select shape the spirit of the scene. A towering marigold might overshadow a fairy cottage, but a cluster of baby tears? That becomes the lawn where stories unfold. Selecting plants that stay small and grow slowly ensures your miniature world remains balanced, believable, and bursting with charm. Begin with Irish moss or baby tears. These lush, low-growing greens mimic fields and meadows, forming a dense, cushiony carpet. They're soft to the touch and thrive in partial shade, perfect for a hidden fairy nook beneath trees. Creeping thyme adds more than greenery, it offers fragrance. Brushing against it releases a subtle herbal aroma, as if the fairies themselves had just passed by. It hugs the ground, fills spaces between pebbles, and even blooms with tiny purple flowers. For pops of texture, consider miniature ferns or sedums. They bring elegance, curling upward in feathered fronds or trailing like ivy. In containers or lanterns, succulents shine. Their plump, sculpted forms resist drought and bring a storybook geometry to any scene. When planning your palette, think in layers. Low creepers for lawns and paths, mid-level greenery for shrubs and hedges, and a few slightly taller miniatures to mimic trees or walls. Choose contrasting textures, soft moss beside sharp stone crop, or round thyme leaves under ferny plumes. And color? It matters more than you think. Silvery greens feel moonlit, while deep emeralds evoke forest shade. Soft blush tones in leaves or flowers can add a sense of morning glow. Let your plants do more than survive. Let them speak. Caring for these petite companions is simple, but tender. Water gently, ensuring good drainage. Trim overgrowth like you would a bonsai with intention and grace. Rotate your garden occasionally so all plants receive even light. And celebrate seasonal changes, adding tiny flags or seasonal blooms. These plants don't just decorate your fairy garden. They root it. They ground the fantasy in something alive, something quietly growing. Because even the smallest world needs real, living breath beneath it. Sometimes, it's the smallest touches that make a place feel real. A miniature swing hung from a twig, a toothpick broom leaning by a mossy wall, a tiny book left open beside a pebble bench. These aren't just decorations. They are moments, frozen in stillness, that breathe life into your fairy garden. Personalization is where your garden stops being a project and starts becoming a story. Look around your home. A stray button can become a fairy table. Bits of string can be braided into a hammock. A scrap of paper, folded and inked, turns into a tiny map or letter. These details, unique to you, are what turn a charming setup into something that feels lived in. And don't be afraid to be playful. Add a fairy clothesline between two sticks, hung with scraps of cloth or flower petals. Build a postbox from a matchbox and write fairy-sized letters to tuck inside. Paint a stone with glitter to resemble a stardust trail, leading to a secret doorway only the observant will find. These tiny additions also make your garden interactive. Children will search for new surprises each visit. Guests will lean in closer, smiling as they discover a sign reading "Tea at noon." Mind the dragonflies. Even better, these touches are inexpensive, often crafted from materials you already have. Bark, twine, seeds, acorns, beads, buttons, and love. To elevate the magic further, add sensory depth. Hang a tiny bell that softly chimes in the wind. Paint a small mirror to look like a reflecting pool. Place dried lavender near the entrance of a fairy home so the breeze carries its scent. Don't rush. Add slowly over time, like like a fairy is building the world herself, piece by piece. Rotate decorations seasonally, or surprise yourself by adding one tiny change each week. Keeps the magic alive not just for others, but for you. Because in a world filled with noise, there's quiet joy in noticing the little things. In the glint of a bead, the curve of a twig, the curl of moss around a fairy's door. We are reminded that wonder doesn't need to be big to be beautiful. Sometimes it only needs to be seen. There's a hush that falls when water enters the garden. A softness, a shimmer, a sense of breath between the leaves. Even in the smallest fairy garden, water can become the soul, reflecting light, adding movement, and whispering serenity into the miniature world. Creating a water feature doesn't require a grand fountain or a deep well. Sometimes, a simple dish filled with glass stones and petals becomes a pond. A battery-powered trickle from a hidden pump becomes a brook where fairies bathe and birds pause. Start with what's simple: a ceramic saucer, a repurposed bowl, an old teacup. Nestle it into the soil or moss. Surround it with stones, bark, or driftwood to blend it with the scene. Then, add detail. A pebble path leading to the edge, a twig bridge crossing over, or a popsicle stick dock inviting someone unseen to rest. Blue glass pebbles mimic deep water. Mirrors add shimmer when dry. Clear water brings the true element alive. Add a floating flower or a leaf to suggest life and motion. For a dynamic touch, small submersible pumps can create movement. A burbling spring, a babbling stream in miniature. Just be mindful, fairy ponds need care. Change water regularly to avoid mosquitoes. Anchor stones and weight light objects to prevent them from shifting in wind or rain. Make sure your dish drains or has an overflow escape so plants nearby don't drown. What's remarkable is how these tiny waterscapes attract real life, too. Bees sip from the edge. Birds tilt their heads, curious. Light plays across the surface, changing the mood of your garden hour by hour. In the quiet of dusk, a flickering lantern beside a pond becomes moonlight on a dream. In morning's blush, dew-laced moss sparkles beside still water, as if time itself has slowed just to admire your creation. Water doesn't shout, it whispers. It invites you to pause, to breathe deeper, to imagine the sound of wings flitting just out of sight. In the language of gardens, it's the lullaby, soft, steady, and utterly enchanting. So carve out space for a ripple. Even a teacup is enough, and let your fairy garden begin to hum. A fairy garden isn't frozen in time. Like any real world, it shifts with the rhythm of the year, budding in spring, glowing in summer, crackling in autumn, and falling into hush come winter. Embracing the seasons isn't just decorative, it's emotional. It lets your garden breathe in harmony with the world around it. Begin in spring, when the soil softens and life stirs. Add pastel colors, soft pinks, eggshell blues, pale greens. Tuck in a nest made from moss and string, filled with painted pebbles as fairy eggs. Let tiny garlands of flowers wind over your twig fences. The scent of thyme and blooming violets carries the feeling of new beginnings. In summer, let your garden expand with sun. Craft beach scenes with sand, driftwood, and tiny seashells. Add fairy hammocks between bonsai trunks and umbrellas fashioned from leaves. Light shines longer now. Let solar lights gather it all day and glow all evening. This is the season of play. Come autumn, bring warmth through color. Let your fairies harvest tiny pumpkins made of clay, little barrels filled with seed pods. Scatter dried leaves as if a breeze has passed through. Paint a signpost to a harvest market, or place a clay pie on a stump table. The fairy world mirrors our own. busy, golden, preparing. And then winter, a season of stillness. Replace leaves with pine cones, soft moss with faux snow. Add a sled near a pebble path, and a glowing lantern nestled in a snowdrift. Make fairy scarves from ribbon scraps. You can even craft icicles from hot glue or clear beads. Let your scene be silent and full, a pause in the year's breath. Rotating your fairy garden through the seasons invites you back again and again. It renews your creativity. It keeps your eyes open for natural treasures. A pine needle here, a fallen flower petal there, and it draws others in, eager to see what's changed. More than anything, it reminds us, magic isn't static. It shifts, cycles, and returns just like the seasons. So let your fairy world bloom, bask, glow, and rest. Season by season, memory by memory. Every story needs terrain, a rise to climb, a path to follow, a resting place to pause. The base of your fairy garden is more than just dirt. It's the landscape where your tiny world begins to breathe. To craft a miniature garden that feels alive, think like a landscape artist in miniature. Hills, platforms, valleys, each elevation shift invites curiosity. It asks the eye to wander, to discover. Flat gardens are charming. Layered gardens are unforgettable. Start with structure. In containers, lay down a base of gravel for drainage, the bones of your world. Add rich potting soil atop it, then shape it with your hands. Build a gentle mound, a winding ridge, or a secret hollow. For larger builds, hide small inverted pots or stones beneath the soil to support elevation without too much weight. Textures are your brush strokes. Use bark for paths, moss for meadows, and coarse sand for dry trails. Arrange pebbles as stepping stones. Define platforms with flat stones or wood pieces. These layers create depth and, more importantly, story. A bench on a hill feels contemplative. A low path curving into shadow feels like a journey. Don't aim for symmetry. Let one side rise, another fall. Make it feel natural, like nature's quiet imbalance. Always beautiful, never exact. Add twigs as railings along ledges or use tiny fences to mark different zones. A small archway placed between two levels acts as both entrance and invitation. Layering also allows for diverse planting. Taller mini ferns on higher ground, moss along slopes, thyme trailing down a ledge. The shadows cast by varied levels bring dimension your garden can't achieve on a single plane. Lighting plays beautifully here too. A lantern perched atop a hill glows downward. A tea light nestled in a hollow flickers mysteriously. Light travels differently in layered spaces, it moves. And as you build this tiny terrain, something magical happens. You stop seeing it as soil and stone, and start seeing it as place. A land ready for tales, ready for life. In every rise and dip, you shape a miniature landscape that invites not just fairies, but the imagination itself. What makes a garden magical isn't just its setting, it's what lives within it. A chair, hand-twined from twigs. A table, cut from a cork and crowned with a pebble vase. These aren't just props. They are invitations to imagine who might sit there, and what stories unfold when no one is watching. Crafting fairy furniture is a slow, intimate joy, the kind that brings your fingers closer to nature and your heart closer to stillness. Start with materials already at hand. Bark, twigs, seed pods, moss, beads, bottle caps, paper clips. With glue, a little patience and gentle hands, these ordinary scraps become something new. A popsicle stick becomes a bed frame. Cork becomes a stool. A pine cone scale transforms into a lampshade. Each piece is infused with your touch, unique and unrepeatable. A mossy bench placed beneath a bonsai branch becomes a reading nook. A bark bed tucked into a stump feels like a resting place after a fairy's long flight. And a table made from an old spool, crowned with clay cups, hints at tea-time conversations between the tiniest of guests. These creations give your fairy garden soul. They offer not just scenes, but emotions. Rest, wonder, hospitality. Visitors, whether children, neighbors, or simply your own wandering eyes, will pause, lean closer, and smile. The process itself is therapeutic. Quiet evenings spent crafting tiny ladders or wrapping string around a twig to make a swing. It brings you back into your hands, your breath, the moment. In a world that asks us to think bigger, faster, fairy furniture reminds us how much beauty lives in the small. They also allow endless customization. Match the seasons, fall chairs with acorn details, winter beds with felt blankets. Add paint, glitter, or leave them raw and natural. There are no rules, only possibilities. Let your fairy garden evolve slowly. Add one piece at a time. Let it feel discovered, not placed. A bench here today, a lantern next week. Let the world you're building surprise you. Because in every crafted chair, every bead-sized bowl, you are not just decorating. You are storytelling in the tiniest, most tender way. And those are the stories that linger longest. Not all gardens are rooted in the ground. Some drift upward, tier by tier, like stories unfolding in the sky. Hanging fairy gardens and vertical setups offer more than just space-saving charm. They evoke wonder, drawing the eye higher, step by step, into layers of whispered imagination. Start with a structure. A tiered basket, a wall-mounted shelf, a wooden ladder leaned gently against a tree. These forms become your canvas. Each level tells its own tale, and together, they rise like verses in a poem. On the lowest tier, let the forest begin. Line it with moss, add bark furniture, and let succulents trail downward like vines reaching for light. Insert a swing from a small branch or a winding path of stones. This is where fairies gather after dusk. The middle tier becomes a retreat, perhaps a garden cafe with clay mugs and a flower petal table, or a tiny library nook shaded by dried leaves. You can glue miniature books on the wall, add a mossy cushion, or string a hammock made from netting or twine. At the top, build the lookout, a tower glowing with a solar lantern, a bird's eye perch with a matchbox telescope, or a nest-like bed lined with tiny feathers. From here, the fairy world surveys its realm. What makes vertical gardens so magical is how they shift perspective. They aren't just scenes, they are experiences. You don't look at them, you travel through them. From ground to sky, moss to lantern. Each level feels like a new chapter waiting to unfold. Creating one is as much engineering as art. Use strong materials, twine, baskets, wood, and balance your weight carefully. Add drainage or water only sparingly. Choose hardy, shallow-rooted plants like sedum, thyme, or trailing succulents. And always let gravity guide the storytelling. Let roots hang, lanterns dangle, fabric flutter. Embrace motion. Let it breathe. These suspended gardens thrive in small balconies, patios, and even indoor corners near sunlight. They defy flatness. They ask the eye to climb, and the heart to lift, because sometimes magic doesn't grow down into soil. Sometimes it grows upward, soft and slow, like dreams rising into morning light. Every garden, even the smallest one, holds a pocket of quiet. A nook where wind slows, light softens, and time seems to forget itself. That's where the fairy garden belongs. Not at the center of spectacle, but in the corners where wonder lingers unannounced. The first magic in crafting a fairy garden lies in choosing where it breathes. Start by wandering your space, not with measurements, but with mood. Where does morning light rest softly? Which spot holds the hush of shadow after noon? Maybe it's a corner under your hydrangea. Maybe it's the ledge outside your apartment window. Perhaps it's an old stone basin no longer used, now offering sanctuary for something gentler. The perfect nook offers visibility, but not dominance. You want your fairy garden to be discovered, not declared. Let it peek from behind a pot, curl into the roots of a tree, or settle into a hollow on your patio. It should belong like it's always been there. Balance of light is key. Most miniature plants thrive in dappled sun or gentle shade. Morning light brings a soft golden glow. Afternoon shade preserves moisture and cools the scene. Observe your garden throughout the day. You'll know when the spot feels right. The surface matters, too. Choose level ground or sculpt gentle terrain. If you're using a pot or raised bed, ensure it's wide enough to build both plants and story. Even a large bowl can become a whole realm if you layer it thoughtfully. Don't forget vertical charm. Hanging nooks are perfect for fairy lanterns or sky gardens. A simple hook, a rail, or a tree limb can elevate your garden to new wonder. And once placed, the nook begins to change. Birds begin to land nearby. A breeze carries the faint scent of time. Light dances across moss as the sun moves west. It becomes more than a craft, it becomes a place. Choosing your fairy garden spot isn't just about location. It's about listening to your garden, to your imagination, to the little voice that says, yes, right here, in the quiet corners, that's where magic waits. There's something beautifully human about gathering, especially when the hands come together not to consume, but to create. Hosting a fairy garden party or workshop isn't just an event. It's an invitation into joy, into wonder, into stillness shared. Imagine it. Wooden tables set under dappled trees or inside a cozy room filled with warm light. Baskets brimming with moss, stones, dried petals, and tiny clay mushrooms wait at the center. Each guest, young or old, receives a pot, some soil, and a canvas of possibility. Fairy gardens speak to all ages. For children, it's a portal into imagination. For adults, it's a return to quiet hands and creative play. And for everyone, it's a way to connect to the earth, to each other, to the parts of ourselves that remember how to build worlds with twigs and thread. To host your own, keep it simple and thoughtful. Offer kits. A small pot, soil, a pinch of moss, a few stones, and 2 or 3 decorative pieces. Encourage guests to bring recycled bits from home, buttons, beads, bottle caps. Lay out popsicle sticks, glue, and paint for crafting. Structure the event gently. Begin with a little storytelling, how fairy gardens began, what inspires you. Then, let the creating unfold freely. Play soft music. Offer light snacks or herbal tea. Let people wander from table to table, sharing ideas, swapping stones, laughing quietly. Workshops can be held in backyards, parks, classrooms, or even as virtual gatherings where participants receive kits by mail. You don't need perfection. You need warmth, openness, and space to make small magic. Add a finishing touch with a group photo of everyone's tiny scenes. A mosaic of imagination made real. Let guests take their gardens home or donate some to a local school, hospice, or community space. Fairy gardens travel well. So does the joy they carry. More than a party, this is an act of care. It teaches patience, sustainability, and shared joy. It reminds us that crafting with our hands, side by side, is a kind of healing we all need more of. So gather, create, let the world grow smaller, softer, and a little more enchanted, together. So we come to the end of this quiet journey, where everyday things found new meaning, where scraps and silence turned into something softly beautiful. Here in the world of Teraflora Studio, we don't chase trends. We listen to textures, to sunlight, to the hum of time. We believe that creativity isn't loud. It's a whisper, a gentle unfolding. Perhaps somewhere along the way, you found a little spark, an idea, a vision of moss under your fingertips, or a lantern glowing quietly in the evening garden. Perhaps it reminded you that joy doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes, it's tucked inside a broken teacup, waiting to be loved again. This channel was made for moments like that, for people who pause, who notice, who choose to make magic, not by buying more, but by seeing differently. If today's stories brought you comfort, or stirred a memory, or made your hands itch to create something small and sincere, then we would be honored if you joined us again. Feel free to subscribe to Teraflora Studio and let our gentle videos find their way back to you. With every changing season, with every quiet bloom. Until then, may your spaces stay soft, your hands stay busy, and your heart just a little more at ease. Thank you for watching. Take care, and we'll see you quietly in the next story.